like mixing up days of doing stuff by myself with like another day of writing with like a friend, like my friend Ian, who I wrote some of the tracks in the album with.
Okay.
And it kind of freshens your brain to like have that interaction with people, and sometimes people say something off the cuff that will spark an idea, or they'll like mention a reference that you wouldn't have thought of. You know, like a lot of the bands that we talk about when we're hanging out, I kind of forget that I love them so much, and I go back and listen to them, and it will sort of make me think of different ideas. Or like when we started writing something just at a piano, I don't often do that.
Solitary life, writing on your own, of actually being able to accept other people's ideas, or...
It was scary. It's really weird. I felt actually a bit more embarrassed.
Yeah.
Because I thought, you know, I'd turn up and it was, I think the first session I did was with somebody who was quite established in their field, and I just thought I'd have nothing to add to it because I was just this random guy. And it's such an unnatural thing to be told, like, go and write a song with this person. Is it, you know, you don't really have a starting point or a relationship. But I met this guy called Andy Chatterley, who's like a producer, and he's really amazing, and he's so fun and so funny and so like disarming in a way, because he just like makes you laugh. That working with him started to just be so easy, and it really made me think like, oh, okay, I can do that. It's a lot more fun than I was worried about, and then it just gets easier when you find a couple of people that you click with really well.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, even now, I you know, I've been writing with my partner Andy for like 30 years, but even when we start off a new project, like a new album, and the first few hours are really awkward.
Yeah.
And kind of embarrassing. Yeah. Because neither of us knows if anything's going to come out of the moment. And having said that, though, only takes 20 minutes, and then
that's fine.
It's all. I think it's all songwriting. It's about trust and it's about respect. You know, it's trusting that the other person's not going to laugh at you.
Yeah.
At your idea.
Yeah.
And it's trusting that if the idea is rubbish, that you both can move away from it and move on to the next idea. You know, that's today's words of wisdom.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Respect.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had a moment where I've put something forward and it's been turned down that I thought was right. You know, it's like any decision we've made with the person I'm writing with, we've both agreed. And it must be so awkward if like you really think that your idea is like amazing. And then make it shit. Just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that's really important in any kind of songwriting relationship, because you have to know when to let go, you know. And if you spend all your time fighting for your corner, that's why I can't imagine being a four-piece again. And then you've got four personalities to deal with, or three people to deal with, you know, and three different egos.
Yeah.
And I think duos are great.
Yeah. Well, you do very well with them, so.
Would you say technology has influenced electronic music in the last?
Well, obviously, yes.
Yeah. Well, how has it? How has it changed the way you like write and play music?
How has it changed the way you write?
What?
Technology.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, actually, it's everything really. I mean, when I started, we were a guitar band, and synths seemed much easier. And then when we signed to a record label, Mute Records, in 1980, the guy that had ran the label had a sequencer, and that changed everything. Because suddenly our music was in time.
Yeah. I think like, I don't know, I obviously started making music a lot later, but I still didn't really have the kind of stuff that I wanted, or that I needed to make the kind of music that I wanted. So using like a really basic keyboard and guitars and things, and manually trying to keep in time with myself and play different things was probably as ineffective as being in a crap band. You know, but just doing everything myself, I think, was quite hard, until then, like, technology became a lot cheaper and a lot easier to find, and then I think that changed how I wrote quite a lot, because I could make a lot more sounds than I was able to on my own before that. And it meant that you could think outside the box a bit more, I think.
But I mean, you can play anything. You can play everything, right?
I can't play drums.
You can play the piano, you learn to play saxophone for this new record, which is, I think, is amazing. You play guitar, and you actually set out to play saxophone just for that reason.
Yeah, it's just for the album.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's mainly to reenact that bit from the Lost Boys, you know, just like playing into the distance and confusing people as they're walking past the window. I don't know, it's also because I do so much by myself that it gets so hard to keep outsourcing people to do stuff. It's like finding, on the last album I wanted one saxophone line and I almost didn't find someone in time to get the mastering done. So I just thought like, well, I'll just learn how to play it then. And you know, it's sort of that, just making sure I can get everything done. I'm definitely not the best saxophone player you've heard in your life, but I can, you know, edit it on a record and make it sound kind of good. Yeah.
How do you both find each other in New York? Like, what brings you to New York from the UK?
Okay, so we met via a mutual friend, someone at New Records, because I think you did a remix for us,
yes,
right?
I did, yeah.
And then, is it Neil?
It's Neil, yeah.
Neil at New
Neil
Records.
is amazing.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. And Neil kind of introduced us, really, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he's great. He's such a pop music fan, and he's such a fan of the new catalogue, and I think he's got a really good ear for when people are referencing that and stuff they're doing, and obviously, like, the blueprint is all over a lot of the pop stuff that I write, so he quickly, like, honed in that we'd probably get on and sort of thought it would be a really good idea to chat, and turns out it was.
And what is Brooklyn like for your creativity compared to London or the UK?
After me? For me, living in Brooklyn and being a creative is so much more rewarding than London. And I'm really sorry to anybody in the UK for this, but it really is so true. Like, I found, like, working in London on my own really lonely. I find like there are so many bands and so many artists in London all doing their own thing, but very much doing their own thing. And I felt like I didn't belong to any particular scene. I found it really hard to connect to other people, which maybe would have been less so if I'd been in a band or in like a kind of, you know, collective or whatever. But I wasn't, and so I felt like I was constantly working on my own and sort of existing very much outside any kind of bubble that was there. But I started playing shows in New York, and I met like different musicians and different individuals who all were like, oh, you want to make this kind of music? My friend does this, you should meet them. And he connected me, and then someone else will connect me, and I built this real, like, wonderful network of people that really kind of made me feel like New York was much more community-based and sort of collaborative-based. And as somebody that loves collaboration, that really works for me.
Yeah.
So being in Brooklyn is kind of exactly what I need. It really brought me back to life from a really kind of like deflated place that I was in London. Even though there were lots of really, really cool, lovely people in London, the approach to making music here is different. It's like, probably I wouldn't have had the courage to email you if I lived in London still and you did. Sure. I would have felt a bit too, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I think you're right actually. I started a very small record label, and one of the prime reasons for doing that was just so that I could connect with other musicians and people. I mean, I'm not a jamming musician, so I'm not going around to different studios planning sessions and stuff. And you're right, in London, I don't think there is so much that community. Not really. I mean, people here, I think, are a little more willing, or maybe they're less embarrassed.
Yeah.
You know, less embarrassed to approach people and say, hey, you know, what you're doing, and this is what I do, and maybe we do the same kind of thing, maybe we can get together and do something together, you know. So there's definitely a good kind of collective vibe here. More so in Brooklyn, I think, than in Manhattan.
Yeah, I think
so.
We're
biased.
Yeah, very biased. One thing I also think is like really telling and really important is when I go to see other people's shows, I always see other musicians and other performers at the shows, and I know like people that perform like Joe's Pub or Mercury Lounge, whatever. It's not people that have asked for guest lists to go to the shows. It's people that buy a ticket and go. And I think that's so cool. It makes me feel really full of like hope for making art over here. People want to support their friends.
Yeah.
And honestly, like for a long time in the UK, the first question I got was like, what is the guest list? Is there a guest list? Can I have a ticket? And I get it, like people are broke and you want to give people a ticket if you can, but it's not the first question people ask you. They'd be like, when is the show? What time is the show?
Yeah.
And just feeling like people would try and buy a ticket if they could is like, it shows that everyone wants everyone to do well.
Yeah.
I really like that approach.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Are the crowds different over here when you do play show? The reaction?
What about for you guys when you tour?
The audiences in the States for us, I mean, I don't know, I mean, it's kind of the same, but it's kind of different, it's weird. And it depends on what tour. The last tour that we did, Erasure did in the States, it was, we're doing these kind of meet and greet type things. And honestly, I mean, I couldn't believe, I couldn't believe what nice things people were saying. And there were so many people that came up to us and said, like, hey man, that when you brought that repair there, that changed my life, because they were going through a difficult time in their lives, or they were coming out, or something. And although I kind of, people say that now and then, this was like en masse.
It makes you feel like it's all worth it, really.
Well, it was really special.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really touching, and maybe Andy, my partner, maybe he, knew that or whatever. It struck me the last tour more than any other tour before that he was like, wow,
Maybe it's like partly to do with the feeling of being on your own in a room making stuff. When you do eventually get to have that time with people and you actually get to hear their response to stuff, rather than like Andy being the front man and doing like club PAs. If you're more behind the scenes, you don't really understand how much the music changes people's lives.
Yeah.
Like, your bands, all of them have influenced so many people in like my age range. It's like in the, if you don't own this album, like why are you making music kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I understand, and it's weird because I understand how much music moves somebody, because it moves me, that's why I do it, I'm more affected by music probably than anyone I know, emotionally. But at the same time, UK audiences are also super nice.
Yeah.
And super noisy, and in my experience, super so polite as well. That's what I love.
I love whenever we play in Glasgow, they're always so drunk. They're so amazing. It's like I say that on stage every time. I'm like, you guys are so brilliant. You're so drunk, and they're like, yeah. And they just have the most incredible time. Just watching them like live their absolute best lives. It's so great. It's really fun.
So the last question to conclude, I know it's cliche, but what would the one bit of advice be to give to a young, 16-year-old producer of electronic music that's sitting in their bedroom thinking, how can I kind of get to this level?
God. I would say something like don't overthink it, but do the opposite. You've got to be really careful. I think like to somebody who's young and trying to start out in music, it's like focus on what you actually want to do and what kind of stuff you want to make and who you want to be, I suppose. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't try and sound like other people, and don't like get caught up in what other people are doing. I worry now because social media is so powerful that on one hand you can get an audience really quickly, but you also like have 1,000 people to compare yourself to, and like having fewer likes than somebody else or fewer tweets or whatever can make you feel like a failure, and I think that could be dangerous. So just like turn off the internet for a while, make music that you're proud of, and find the best way to get that across.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that, similarly, I would say that the thing that one ought to do from the outset is make music for yourself. You know, it's not like trying to think, oh, maybe this audience here will like it, or maybe I'll sell so many records by this type of music.
Yeah.
The first person that you have to please is yourself, and that's the way that we've always worked. You know, we've never worked for the record company, and the record company, to be fair, have never said that we need this kind of record.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to be true to yourself. That's would be my advice from an old geezer.
I think you have to sound like you mean it on a stage. You have to look like you mean it. So if you're not making music that you believe in, there's no way that someone is going to buy that. You know, like every time that I've seen you guys play as Erasure, there's never a second that you doubt why that music was made. And you know, you can just see in like Andy and like hearing the voice and hearing all the production, like that you guys loved that, and that's why you made it. And that's what you want. You want to be able to go on stage and just feel like super proud to play a song. Otherwise, like, what's the point?
That's a wonderful way to sign it off.
Yeah, what's the point? Happy message, guys.
So give each other like a high five, hug, whatever, and then.
Oh,
Goodbye,
baby.
yeah.
Goodbye, bye kids.
Let's go and let's say like, yeah. Well, thanks for coming and chatting, guys. Should we go to the pub?